Okay, so guys, hypothetically, if there was a button to fully change your gender, there was no downsides, permanent, would you do it?
The fact that it's not instant, the fact that it's permanent makes me want to say no.
Uh,
I don't know.
I
I wouldn't.
guess.
I wouldn't.
So damn, you know, like, for sure.
I suppose.
Cool.
I feel like
I mean,
since it's permanent, I feel like if you say yes to that, then you've got some questions to ask yourself. Okay, but you didn't answer the question, Chris. Would you press the button?
No.
No.
damn.
No. I would
suppose
not
that's
press
fair.
the button.
You know,
I might trick someone else into pressing the button for laughs and giggles.
and Ari, am I correct to assume you would press the button?
Yeah, duh.
Understandable.
Groundbreaking stuff over here.
It looks so much. I'd look so much cooler. Are you kidding me?
Fox hasn't said anything since we started talking about this.
Very
If some-
suspicious.
You got something to tell us?
I've just been mining.
Well,
Okay.
Did you
we
want
gotta know now.
an answer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
Everyone else has answered.
Question for the group.
No, I just I don't know. Like maybe in another life I'd do it, but if there's just like a straight up button that you can't come back from, I feel like that's too much of a risk.
Okay, but even like the thought of, oh, if only there was like another life, I'd do it. That's not entirely a cis.
Yeah.
Well, it's not
Okay.
entirely a fair question, so I don't know.
Well, I don't know. It's like, I guess it's not fair, but it's not a real question either. You know, you just
Yeah, it's like it's a ridiculous question, but it's not.
I think
guess it-
I think you're just trying to change the topic. Seem to be avoiding it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I've got to go to bed, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.
I woke up from the dream. Something about cows across the Spider-Verse and more that's probably for the best that I don't remember, but the takeaway was unambiguous. I think I want to transition my gender. I was both scared of what that meant and of people making me transgender, but the clearest thing about the dream was me deciding to do things my own way, whatever that means. Can you imagine how it feels to have your life turned upside down overnight? Not just knowing you wanted to be a woman, but the realization you could be. The fear, the doubt, the responsibility is totally overwhelming. I took advice from anyone I trusted to alleviate some of the weight of what I've just learned. Sam was someone I'd known in high school, but had gotten to know better playing Minecraft over the summer. Her and Aerie were the only trans-identifying people I knew in real life, and I came out to Sam that morning. She knew all along? Was that possible? Why didn't she tell me? How did she know? We talked for a while, and she helped me calm down and feel a bit better. There was no pressure for me to do anything, just see how I feel over time. I really wanted to get a therapist to help me figure it out, but I was still afraid of someone making me trans, and arranged a time to talk to my psychiatrist instead. I did that in secret. I didn't want to let my parents know when I wasn't sure that's even what I was yet. I I trusted my new psychiatrist because he had slowly gotten me off of all of the ineffective antidepressants my old one had me on over the last year. But when I asked him for advice, he only worsened my anxiety about it. He'd worked with trans people in the military and told me what I was feeling could be gender dysphoria. Thoughts like I was having don't go away, but I should experiment with my gender to be sure. It's a genie I already wanted back in the bottle, and hearing that might not be possible was terrifying. So finally, I talked to my old friend Chase to find a less trans-affirming opinion. He'd gone up that mountain with me in the Kubelwagen just 2 years prior, and even threw a surprise going-away party for me before the end of the summer, so I really cared about his opinion. Chase told me rather bluntly that I wasn't a loser like Sam and most of the trans people he knew, and so he trusted me to make whatever was the right decision. He also mentioned that Scotland was going to change me so much as a person, I should probably wait until after I find myself over there to figure out my gender identity. That wasn't very helpful looking back, and he says he's embarrassed about it now, but gave me my favorite thing in the world, an excuse to procrastinate. It was all too much at once. I hardly understood what transitioning even meant, and escaped into other things for a while. For all my love of Star Wars and Halo and how obvious it was that I would enjoy Warhammer 40k, I purposefully avoided it because of how annoying what I saw of the fandom was. One YouTube comment convinced me to watch the Star Wars vs. 40k fan series, and that series slowly pulled me into the universe as I kept filmmaking and helping on the tank ranch. To explore my gender at least a little bit before I left, I went shopping at the mall with Sam and Aerie. It was scary and exciting, but other than this mini skirt I found at H&M, I wasn't willing to experiment much. My beard was too much fun to shave, and Scotland was so close I put it aside. I also felt like if I really experimented, I would open the floodgates that I couldn't close. I could graduate with my bachelor's in filmmaking in 3.5 years, so I was celebrating by spending that last half year abroad. My classes at St. Andrews in Scotland would be a medieval studies and film studies course, and if I could succeed at that adventure and graduate early, maybe all this gender stuff would just fall into place on the other side. I said goodbye to the Rocky Mountains of Colorado to pursue an uncertain future. Heading for a country I hadn't been to for 20 years without even knowing who I was, let alone anyone there, was terrifying, but also so exciting. Landing in Edinburgh, I instantly realized how foreign everything was. Everything's close, but slightly off from America. When I got to my hall, the fear really hit as everything was new, the hall's layout was so confusing, and I didn't know a soul. I didn't like my roommate that much, so I bounced around friend groups that first week until mostly settling with the queer group. Of them, I hung out with Jamie the most. They brought me to the Warhammer store the next town over and introduced me to the tabletop war games Star Wars Legion and Warhammer 40k Kill Team. Clones were always my favorite Star Wars army, and the ones that Jamie had painted in their room were gorgeous. Not bad. As university started, I got a little scared when I realized the scope of the academic task before me. I chose St. Andrews because of the location, but it turned out that year it was voted the UK's top university. My film studies war and cinema class was easy, but I'd also be taking a final year course in medieval history about the medieval St. Andrews. Writing about the history of a country I don't know that much about, and a topic I'd never studied in a university famed for it, was a little overwhelming, so naturally I took the first weekend off to fly to England. I got to visit the Tank Museum for Tiger Day, an absolute dream come true. At first I felt really lonely and wished Chase or my dad were there to enjoy it with me, but the excitement of being in the Tank Museum eventually took over, and I had a blast exploring the museum and watching the reenactment. Then I flew to London to visit my parents, who were in the country for a wedding. I got to visit some landmarks, the neighborhood where I was born, and this cool Star Wars memorabilia collection. I loved visiting some of the World War II history, like the Churchill War Rooms and the HMS Belfast, and I didn't even get stabbed exploring the city at night. That night, I dreamt I was a girl and went shopping in London. How nice that would be. I just tried to forget about it and move on. Finally, back in class, I learned that British English has some different written rules than American English, making school even more of an uphill battle. That said, studying medieval history in a medieval town with the ruins of a castle and cathedral in walking distance was such a treat. It was certainly a good time to get into Warhammer. Listening to Star Wars vs. 40k while walking past a ruined Gothic cathedral was definitely an experience. Just being in such a small but dense town that you could walk anywhere was so good for making and keeping friends. Walking had its downsides. Real cobble is dangerously slippy when it's raining, and after the first 2 weeks of sun was basically permanent. But being in a dorm where I could just slip downstairs whenever I wanted to be with friends was amazing. Just talking with a friend in the hall about my contributions to the YouTuber Jay Schlatt's reaction videos when a guy named Juan saw us and went, "You were the stormtrooper?"
Hello.
We became quick friends over our shared love of Schlatt and coalesced the international friend group I spent the most time with. With members from America, Norway, Argentina, and Kenya, we bonded over being strangers in a strange land.
Dude, I could get so much wizardry done over there. Guys will see that and just think, hell yeah.
While I might have been putting off doing the reading for medieval history, I was exploring it in real life, visiting Stirling Castle and learning its history. Don't worry about the mutton chops, I was doing a Schlatt costume at the time. The bus trip through the Scottish Highlands was the real highlight, and the reason I wanted to go to Scotland in the first place. I got close to where they filmed Andor and something else that's probably not important. Not everyone sees the same magic in the Highlands that I do, but for me it's my favorite spot in the world. Mutton chops are really impractical, making your chin cold but your cheeks itchy, and I shaved them off. I really wanted to try long hair, but as my hair just poofed out instead of growing long, I got a haircut to make it less annoying. Idiot, idiot, idiot. During Halloween, I finally achieved a dream of mine to be invited to a college house party. Some kid tried to bully me in the hall, but I didn't really care at that point. I had more self-confidence than ever, even if my self-esteem was still low. At that point, I would look in the mirror and it would be a flip of a coin whether I was reminded how glad I was to lead this life of adventure or just think about how much I hated myself. That was still a 50% upgrade over previous years, and now I could finally say I was the cool kid at school, hopping between cafeteria tables of friend groups I loved. I'd become social enough to be able to practically beg the president of the Hill Walking Society, the hiking club, to let me on their last hike. I was supposed to pick my topic for my last essay, and I brought the papers in my hiking backpack to choose on the bus. Spending the whole ride talking with a Chinese student, I was surprised how much we had in common. Since I hadn't chosen my topic yet, I took the papers up the 1,000-foot prominence of the mountain Ben Vraki instead. I felt a little out of shape, but summiting a mountain and subsequently getting lost in the brush afterwards fulfilled my Scottish dreams. I chatted the whole ride back, and to give you an idea of the terminal procrastinator I was, I still hadn't picked a topic by the time I got to my dorm. A more pressing matter asserted itself when Jay Schlatt issued a new challenge to make a business presentation for his React series. Another Chase from America wanted to get into filmmaking, and I got him and the rest of the international friend group together to make an ambitious submission into the contest.
The 3 crosses of St. Andrews. That's the hint to where we are. It's the doxing. We're getting doxed right now.
The week we spent making a short film was my favorite memory of the whole trip, as filmmaking collaboratively was what I'd learned to love over 2023. I grew up with early Indiana Jones fan films on YouTube, and to make a parody in a real castle dungeon was unbelievably fun. It turned out really well, and even though Schlatt didn't react to it, I was really proud of what we made. It gave me a taste of what returning to YouTube could be like, and there were so many videos I'd recorded throughout the years but avoided editing that I felt like I could finally stop procrastinating and make it happen once I got home. On the last day of medieval history, we got to touch real medieval manuscripts and go inside an actual tomb. Good thing I already finished my Indiana Jones parody, or I probably would have gotten some bad ideas. The last day of War in Cinema was a coup involving girls overthrowing the professor and watching the last Twilight movie with us, which was my last day of school ever. Odd feeling that. Celebrating with the queer friend group, we found a trans girl at the pub named Wendy who my friends talked to for a while, and when everyone was drunk and complaining about men, I was told no offense. I felt so unseen and invalidated, and also confused and ashamed that I felt that way, and went back to the pub. I enjoyed karaoke night at the Union, but eventually I did have to write my last essays. Amidst the fear and the self-hatred for letting it get so out of hand, I learned you have to forgive yourself to move on from procrastination. Cora, a good friend from Jamie's group, said that I'm a 4th year and I should be better than this, but I wasn't going to fail at the finish line. By the end of the last possible day, I finished my medieval essay, and my professor congratulated me on how far I'd come and how much I'd learned in a short time. My cinema essay wasn't as good, probably because I didn't feel as challenged by it, but in studying abroad, only passing matters, and I did more than that. I had fun having a friend paint my nails at the end to at least feel I'd explored my gender a little, but maybe I could keep that feeling away a bit longer. For Christmas, I handed out stickers of Pikes Peak, the mountain I live next to, for all my friends to remember me by. I said my goodbyes to everyone as the hall slowly got emptier. Jamie gave me a Space Marine miniature to remember the time we spent playing Kill Team together, and Juan and I listened to Jay Schlatt's cover of My Way on our last day together. My dad met me in Brussels to spend a week in Europe, mostly visiting World War II sites and museums. I thoroughly enjoyed the food, architecture, and museums of Western Europe, and was entertained at how Americanized things were. But the weight of it set in when I sent a picture back to Chase, and he reminded me that people died in that tank. Visiting a concentration camp, the American graveyard, and the landing beaches was sobering. It didn't change my view of World War II, but was an important reminder of how many people gave their lives in the fight against fascism. I finally left Europe after making great friends, memories, and learning how much we all have in common. but I was no closer to finding answers about myself. Getting back to a sense of terrible normalcy, I immediately felt lonely. The worst place to be is in your own head, and without my friends or class, that's where I was stuck. I resolved to make a cool YouTube series out of my backlog of adventures, starting with my Kubelwagen video I recorded in 2021, but editing was slow as I didn't have a real direction to take it. Put off getting a real job right away because my old filmmaking professor reached out with an opportunity to make a student documentary in China over the summer, and I didn't want any major commitments to interfere with that. I took any distractions that came my way instead. I kept in touch with Juan by introducing him to Halo and playing through the series together.
Oh shit. Man, it's beautiful.
By the time we finished Halo 3, the 405th Halo cosplay group got invited to Hollywood for the red carpet premiere of the Halo series Season 2.
That's insane. And I have to finish this very, very quickly to get on the list to get into Hollywood, so you'll forgive me if I don't record all the steps, but the ODST armor has been a long time project, and it's finally reaching a stage that hopefully I'll feel somewhat satisfied with, and will make an impression.
Regardless of how I felt about that show, what a perfect opportunity.
Oh man. Oh my god, that's so odd.
Bunking with some old 405th friends, some new people tented up with us as well. We had so much fun at the premiere and just messing around in our hotel in Hollywood for a little while, and I met some new people, like Sam, a non-binary trans man, which I didn't get because why would anyone born female want to be a man? Thoughts of wanting to transition came in waves. Sometimes I wouldn't think of it for weeks at a time, but each wave was bigger and sooner than the last. As I looked for distractions, I remembered the extra Space Marine sprue Jamie left with me, and since I joked with them that Space Marines looked like Buzz Lightyear, and felt a little bad that I took one of their painted minis, I painted it and mailed it back to them. As much as I was scared of liking 40K at the start, the more I experienced it, the more enjoyment I got. I enjoyed it so much I split a Kill Team kit and paint set with my dad so we could paint minis and play together. I even got to read a couple books, listening to The Infinite and the Divine when I went up to Vancouver with my dad to pick up a new half-track. I really enjoyed it, and the theme of the cycle of empires helped me to process everything I saw in Europe. Every civilization is a necropolis built upon the bones of what came before, and we are likewise haunted by ghosts of our past selves we wouldn't recognize ourselves in if we met them. I got to edit an episode of Star Wars vs. 40K, and kept making films by submitting a new video for Schlatt that did get in, and actually broke him.
What do I even say to this? What am I supposed to?
I went with Chase and Chris to meet some friends in Missouri for the eclipse, and I just kept thinking about it. No matter where in the world I went or what I did, I couldn't stop thinking about transitioning. Despite all the fear I'd overcome, I still didn't have the guts to try anything or even really research it, and it was eating me up. I remember the nights in high school I fell asleep praying that I would wake up as a girl, but how could you know for sure? Finally, going to my first metal concert with Chase, I saw so many trans people enjoying themselves that I realized how in my head I'd gotten, and I should at least try something. My parents were going out of town for the first week of May, and I went thrifting again with some of my trans friends for enough girl clothes to actually last that long. I was just gonna wear female clothing for the week, hang out with friends, and see how I felt about it on the other side. But just judging by how excited I was getting about the opportunity, well, I might already know. My parents didn't have a high opinion of trans people, and my mom had been more frequently bringing them up unprompted as what was wrong with America. I don't think she imagined that she could be talking about me. I did some research while I waited for them to leave, and luckily my favorite Halo reviewer, Leadhead, had been making more than just Halo reviews since I last watched her. When my parents left, I took my time shaving my face and body hair, paying close attention to how it made me feel, and realized I felt clean for the first time since puberty. I put on some slightly feminine clothes and went across my basement to see myself in a mirror that wasn't Misty, but didn't make it as I caught my reflection in another one and froze. It's hard to describe exactly how that made me feel, just that it felt electric, seeing for a fleeting moment the ghost of who you're meant to be. Instead of trying to recapture those thoughts a year later, I'll just let her explain. I don't know how to describe it, so I'm not gonna lose my sense of honesty to wax poetic about something I don't have words for, but it's... But I think I just knew. I've realized that, I had such a storm of thoughts that was like me fighting myself. What if this is wrong? What if I get this wrong? What if, bad things happen? Not even, scared of anything. My friends and my psychiatrist even said, what are you scared of? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just scared. And all of that storming around, and, now there's, not a part of me, but just, I still have the thought. It was okay, wait out the rest of the week, see how you feel by the end. But it's by the first day, I'm not a storm of thoughts and fears and emotions fighting itself anymore. I'm not running against the current of my own mind and my own body. I'm finally letting go and just embracing it has been amazing. And thinking back on my life, I wasn't one of those trans people that always knew, but I'm sure people can relate to thinking about experiences and thoughts they've had in the past that are kind of revealing after the fact to look back on them. And I see more of those. I don't think I'm gonna cry, but I'm getting close. And that's a wonderful thing, because I'm not
bottled up anymore. I'm not lying to myself or fighting myself. I'm me. Maybe I'm finally me. The me that I wish I was brave enough to be so much earlier. You know, I'll keep an open mind till the end of the week. It's like, hey, maybe I won't like it by the end, but I can't imagine a world where I want to go back to being a man. I feel so much better now. I don't even care that I can't shave very well, and I've got hair everywhere still, and it's still very male looking. I'll deal with that. I've dealt with worse. I've climbed mountains in Kubel wagons and with my own 2 feet. So that's day 2 of dressing like a woman. I think it's fair to say by this point, if I was a completely cis man that was completely fine with staying a man, that I'd be mad chillin' because the clothes are a bit comfier, and I'm like, okay, whatever. This feels a little weird. But it doesn't feel weird, does it? It feels completely right. Happiness has to be fought for, doesn't it?
I felt sure enough that I came out to the 405th Rainbow Zone channel on Discord, and a member there said I should change my online name to Misty Fox after I asked for suggestions. My friends came over for a big Nerf and karaoke party, and I had more fun being myself than I'd ever had at any of my parties before. There was so much fear during the entire week, but so much more freedom and fun than I'd ever had. Aerie and Sam supported me being trans, but also said they'd support me if I decided I was still cis, so there was no pressure from anyone to transition. I had to cut the week short to help my sister through their college finals in another town, and hoped that help could buy some grace with my parents. While I was there, I looked for a list of girl names to choose and picked June, before learning that was the article's publishing date. That was all well and good though, as June's my favorite month, and it could be a nickname for Juniper to make it longer. Getting back home, I had to hide everything, scrape off my nail paint, and pass off the clothes as stolen from my sister. It felt immediately crushing, isolating, invalidating, depressing, dehumanizing, and gross to be forced to not be yourself. My friends had started a new Minecraft phase with a little hardcore world, and it became the perfect escape. I used it to test my new name and going by she/her, and was shocked my friends adjusted to it faster than I did. Overly leaning into it while playing Minecraft was so desperately affirming in a time when I couldn't get that gender affirmation elsewhere.
It's a little
sorry.
tank fight.
Nope.
I don't think you can make that.
This is cool.
No, I don't have it. I probably can, but I just realized I'm nearly starving to death.
Here, have some steak.
Crazy. You got real... That was a trap.
By that point, I wasn't just researching, but actively hoarding knowledge, figuring out who I was, what I wanted to do, what being trans entailed, and how far I wanted to take it. I'd already promised to be myself no matter what that meant, so deciding to write down all my doubts and fears, I prayed for the Lord to show me the right path, and saw vividly a Halo cutscene I'd played a few months ago. Most of my time in that world I spent alone in the Nether, listening to the new music that I related to in a way I couldn't explain. I only really feel comfortable in my skin when I'm covered in armor like that. If there's another life, I'd probably be happier as a woman.
You found me. that so much of me is wrong, out of place. You might be too late.
You know me. When I make a promise.
You keep it.
Rewatching that, I cried. Just a tiny bit, as I hadn't cried in a decade. After a month of being in the closet, it was so suffocating that I couldn't hide any longer. I was scared of coming out, but through talking with my parents about a friend's situation, I reasoned they at least wouldn't kick me out. After days of putting it off, I gathered the courage to come out to my parents. It went about as well as I could expect. They didn't support me, but they weren't kicking me out and just asked for me to put being trans aside for a while I went to China in 10 days so I could focus on my documentary. I got a new camera to shoot the documentary with and wanted to test it before I left for China, but then things started to fall apart. The next day, tragedy hit close and I spent a day comforting a friend in crisis, and then had to fly to Alabama to help someone I knew through Minecraft move to Colorado, as I'd agreed to do months ago. Hiding felt oppressive, but we crashed with a friend in Missouri whose cousin helped me with makeup and made me feel better for a while. I helped my dad with the business and house sat for my aunt. The game store was my only respite and safe space I could overcome fear enough to present as myself in. When I'm dressing masculine, I'm tortured by whether or not I'm really trans, but when presenting feminine, there's no doubt in my mind I want to stay that way. I went to a cool 1940s ball with Lena, which I set up months before because I thought it would make me stop feeling trans, but it just made me feel dysphoric instead. Finally, I ran out of time. I boarded my flight to China with not even my professor knowing I was trans, no experience with my camera, and no idea what to expect. The program I was with was called Looking China, which sponsored international film students to come to China and direct a short documentary on an assigned cultural topic with the help of a Chinese student acting as guide and producer. I was in a cohort that included students from Colorado, LA, Slovakia, Czechia, and Fiji, all staying together in the coastal city of Xiamen. With the terms of the agreement, everything was paid for, but your flight to leave wouldn't be covered if you didn't finish on time. That, plus everything you hear about China as an American, would probably be scarier to me if I wasn't exhausted by over 30 hours of travel and the emotional ringer of the last week. I can't sleep in vehicles, so the travel was torture, but when we finally met our producers, I breathed a sigh of relief when I saw mine. With dyed blue hair, she chose to go by the English name of Mia, and had mostly learned English through internet fandom spaces. We got the local tour and some meetings on the project requirements before the 10 days of filming and editing began, and we were set loose.
Jambo!
Mia and I chose the subject of the coexisting old and new architecture of the nearby city of Jime, and while it didn't make for the most exciting document for a documentary, it fit my interest in civilization's cycles and changes.
I've traveled each and every byway.
We both liked to take things slow, which was good because I was going to take things as easy as possible as I could do to keep it together under the circumstances. We talked a lot while filming, and eventually I asked her what it was like for trans people in China. She showed me a trans woman talk show host she loved, and explained that old people didn't understand it, but like everywhere else, young people were generally more accepting. When I told her I was trans, she was very accepting and agreed to go clothes shopping and help me with makeup for my birthday.
Gotta make a wish. Okay.
While we were filming Ancient Buildings, Mia found an old caretaker of what he called the Dragon Temple. It was so interesting to see the surprisingly diverse and vibrant mix of local and international religions still being worshipped together in a region with so much history. After finishing another interview, we went shopping together. I felt so much trans joy from dressing femme that night. It honestly kept me alive after all the pressure. My dysphoria manifests as doubt and a gross but dull discomfort with my existence. But presenting as myself for a precious moment melts it away. Foolishly, I wanted to share my joy with my mom, who I hadn't updated for a couple days. In the morning, I woke up to the message that my parents were very disappointed in me. I smoothed it over quickly by showing how ahead on my work I was and that I wasn't just goofing off, but I knew that was just their excuse. I realized I couldn't earn their grace or acceptance, and I was gonna have to find that approval elsewhere. Coming out to my professor, Jay, about it, he said he'd had trans students before, but never one in the middle of transition. If he knew what I was going through, he would have told me not to come for the pressure, but now that I was here, I needed to take care of myself and finish my documentary. Jay thought transitioning, surviving this journey, and becoming more in touch with myself could at least make me a better artist, so I had that to look forward to. I just kept my head down and focused on the work with Mia, and I kept myself hopeful with the idea of a YouTube series I'd make about it once I got back. It was odd I was less afraid of being in China than Britain, but I had other things to worry about and had already conquered most of my traveling fears. Once I started editing and Mia focused on translating the interviews, I spent time getting to know other students and feeling out their thoughts on trans people.
Motorcycle or some shit. Just crashing people. Like a movie.
Aroni from Fiji was only there at all because he kept in touch with his trans cousin after his family cut her off, and she financed his trip. The girls from LA and Slovakia immediately accepted me as one of their own, and reaffirmed my choice of name. I hadn't come out to the rest, but once I knew them better, I was less afraid. Because of my precautions and editing experience, I had some time to talk with Mia after she was done translating. She complained to me about how they had to study Marx every year, which I was shocked she was allowed to even complain about. Mia asked if I knew who that was, and I said, of course, we learned about him in school. And it was her turn to be shocked they let us know that at all. We were both less brainwashed, it seemed, than we expected each other to be, becoming friends despite our governments. Eventually, she asked why I would want to be a woman, given how lower of a social position you have in either country. To me, being trans feels like an old wound that hasn't healed properly and causes me constant but dull pain. Once you realize that and clean it out, it can heal properly, but until you bandage it, you're bleeding out, not being yourself. That didn't mean I wasn't scared of losing that privilege, just that I couldn't live as a guy any longer. Is that it? All for tonight? Yes. We done? We done? Okay. That's a wrap. We finished as the only team that didn't go into overtime with revisions. Jay took those of us he could to a karaoke bar, and on the way I got to talk with the Chinese producers more and learned they liked Indiana Jones as much as I did and had seen all the same movies. I had a plan to finally come out while at karaoke and brought my skirt and top I bought with Mia at the start. I was scared I would get laughed at, but I pushed through my anxiety anyway to feel some joy again. Sneaking into the bathroom to put everything on, I came out to sing my way. Vanessa from Slovakia shouted that I was beautiful, and everyone loved my performance. Singing my heart out in an affirming outfit 7,000 miles from home to a supportive audience of my peers instantly became my favorite memory. Coming down from that high, I said goodbye to Mia and we headed to Beijing for the film festival.
Now that is a big castle.
Seeing the sights was cool. The Great Wall was a privilege, but by that point I just wanted to go home. It was going to be different once I got back. I was ready to make my YouTube series and take control of my life and finally transition my way. Got a proper therapist and talked to my doctor about transitioning. For what I wanted out of my transition, I started hormone replacement therapy, replacing my testosterone with estrogen to cue my body to slowly reshape itself. The static in my brain disappeared instantly, and I started to feel a lot better. The one thing I was supposedly so scared of was actually what I wanted most. I wanted so badly for someone to tell me I'm trans, get it over with, and take that responsibility for transitioning out of my hands. Ultimately, no one ever did. Not my friends, my therapist, doctor, or the internet. You don't get to choose to be trans, to have dysphoria, to be born in the wrong body, but the scariest and most beautiful thing about transitioning is that it's all your choice. What you do, how far you take it, is your responsibility. Every step on that climb is terrifying, regardless of how consequential it is. I've had to confront more than my share of anxiety, but since starting that journey, I've felt so much more alive. It's not just that I'm happier, but that I feel I'm even capable of it now. I see hope for a future I want to be a part of, and I'm beginning to see someone in a mirror that I'm happy to be. I've become far more motivated in general, especially with YouTube. I cooked up a plan to make 7 videos of my journey through the past 4 years, culminating with this one. From editing half a video in half a year to 7 in less than 1, I've found my motivation. That said, I would not recommend anyone else spend the first year of their transition editing pre-transition footage of themselves. It's not fun to be haunted by ghosts of your past self. I tried to find any film work in Colorado, and failing that, I volunteered to help a Star Wars fan film in Utah. Made incredible friends throughout that journey, and over a few weekends I got the courage to come out to that crew too. I even got to fulfill a dream of wearing clone armor as an extra. My parents were never supportive, so I faced my greatest fear of all, getting a job, to pay for it. Living in rural Colorado with my parents, I didn't present as myself very often, but slowly got more confident by doing so on special occasions. It was lucky I got into tabletop when I did. The painting skills I picked up absolutely translated to learning makeup. I finally finished my ODST armor and brought it to some conventions with the 405th. It's always fun to wear armor with other Halo enjoyers, but it was also nice taking the armor off and publicly wearing a cosplay that showed my face for the first time in 8 years. I met another trans girl at that convention who I talked to for a bit, and it was relieving to talk to someone else who was transitioning and to learn it was normal to still be scared of all the changes. As much as we wish it was faster, and I do wish it was faster, it is a good thing that transitioning takes so long. Since there was no film in Colorado, I applied to film school in Vancouver, Canada to get more contacts, and I would thankfully be leaving the country at the end of June. I exercised more than I ever did before to keep some of the strength I lost after losing my testosterone with boxing and hiking. I have friends everywhere now, and some of them even flew out to attend my final Nerf party and say their goodbyes. Before leaving, I have one bit of unfinished business left in Colorado Springs.
Probably the fittest I've ever been in my life. Still, I kind of noticed that, yeah.
Psychedelics have opened my mind, and now I talk to the trees and the lichen.
Psychedelics.
Sometimes the moss.
This hiking pole is dedicated to those who perished on the climb. We got a long way to go. Long, long way.
Yeah, I kind of wish there's a bit more transitions going into Vancouver, like, you know, certain goals like voice training and whatnot. It's another opportunity. I might not be ready for it, but that doesn't mean I've procrastinated or been lazy about my transition. Just, you know, take things a step at a time and seeing where I go.
Yeah. And like, there are multiple things in motion for you right now. Like you're moving to a different country, you're going to school, you're transitioning, and like all three of those are high priority topics. But the thing is like you can't just do them in sequence. You can't just be like, okay, I'm gonna move, and then I'm gonna do school, and then I'm gonna transition. You're doing all three at the same time, and that means like you're gonna do steps in each like category over time, and that doesn't mean you're putting whichever one you're not working on off. It's just that you have to prioritize multiple things at once.
And it's so much change. It's good that it's so slow.
Yeah.
Shall we summit?
Yes, we shall summit.
Ah, the naturally occurring guardrail.
Terrible news.
No, that's not even the summit.
There can't be much more.
Oh, it's like 5 more feet.
Oh yeah. Those feet are hurting. Look at them legs tremble. Yay!
You did it! You made it all the way up!
Well done,
I fully
buddy.
expected you to die.
I saw you guys climbing up my way. I'm proud of you. Well done. Wow. Alright, just take it easy for a second. Yes!
Yes!
Now we figured it out. In the end, you truly were actually a mountain.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I hope you can all get a little something out of this finale, whether or not you're trans. I mean, we've all got our own mountains to climb, but this has been a incredible, amazing, difficult, strenuous last 2 years, and it's been a privilege to be able to share any of it at all with you guys. If you were wondering if this is going to be my actual last video, I'll remind you my previous videos said this was the last video of Mistah Fox, and as I'll be changing the channel to Misty Fox instead, this is certainly not going to be my last video on this channel, although it will slow down while I'm in film school in Canada for a while. I've got plenty more ideas to come. They won't necessarily be as high-quality documentaries every month as it has been, but certainly plenty more to share with you. I'd love to do a Q&A if there's interest, and there'll be a lot of BTS for this series and everything I'm doing in Vancouver on my Patreon if you'd like to support me in the meantime. There'll be links to socials and whatnot, but as for now, I think I'll leave you with the Churchill quote I found in the museum that I really liked. Complicated man and all, but really liked this, that this is not the end. This is not even the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning. So, thank you for watching my journey, finally seeing me on the other side, and I'll see y'all around.
So congrats on climbing the mountain, and congrats on going through that journey of self-discovery.
I'm really proud. I can only imagine how much you're gonna do, and I'm always thinking about you. I'm hoping you're doing good, and I miss you. Hope to see you soon.
Getting through all this video without pulling any of her hair out, so I'm glad I could take as much of a load off as I could for that. But yeah, big congrats.
Hello, Juniper. This is Mia. Long time no see. Congrats on wrapping up your video series. So stoked to have been part of it as a Chinese friend, and I really miss those coffee chats we had in Gmail.
I'm not very good at expressing sincerity on account of my autism, but June did it! The series is finally complete! Yeah, boy!
Congrats, and best of luck in whatever comes next for you.